Jazakumullah khair. One of the unique aspects of Islam is that in spite of Muslims, it is increasing, it is ever swelling. Today, I would like to ask the brothers and sisters here about, at the beginning, not why you became a Muslim, because apparently you have answered this question again. But again, what made you join these weirdos? Yes, you know, these with beards, black hair, and I don't know, they dress funny. Why? I mean, there's these terrorists we talk about in the news. It's really nothing to be proud of when you look at it from the outside. We are not progressing. We are backward. We said we are now in refugee camps. What is it? That's one I would like to, every one of the members present here, tell us why. Before I give them the microphone, there is an interesting book by Brother Izzat Begovic, who is the president of Bosnia now. If you read his book, you know why they are fighting him, and they will never let Bosnia survive. In one of the chapters in the book, talks about Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi, peace be upon them all. And he said, Moses came with a message. The Jews misinterpreted his message and took it to the extreme of materialism. Then Jesus came to bring this spirituality back to the message of Moses. The Christian misinterpreted his message and thought all his message of Jesus is spiritual, took it to the other extreme. And finally, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came back and to bring it back to the middle, to balance this religion. This is why Islam is called the religion of the middle. So let me start from one time from the right, one time from the left. Sisters and brothers, we have, you know, otherwise we'll be accused of inequality, CRA, and whatever these days. We can't do that. So you may start, brother. You have to use both, unfortunately.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. What is the reason for us wanting to join the so-called group of weirdos? First, what brought my attention to Allah was not any person, was not anybody who I had seen, who I wanted to be like, you see. I was a weirdo in the dunya. I was the one that I asked my mother when I was little, well, what about Abraham and Moses? Are they going to hell because they died before Jesus? You know, if you believe, Odu Billah, that he came to do this. Okay. Well, there's no answer for this, you see. So I was immediately looked upon as a weirdo already. So, you know, I just joined the weirdos at a young age. But alhamdulillah, the attraction to Islam for me was easy. Everybody knows this word that's Muslim. If they don't, they need to study. Tawheedullah. This is what brings us to Islam. Not this, and this, but Tawheedullah. Because Tawheedullah is the oneness and the uniqueness of Allah. If you are used to sitting in a room where someone tells you that 1 + 1 + 1 is 1, then when you can come to someone and they tell you that Islam is the oneness and the uniqueness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this becomes clear to you. You see, we're used to the game that they put out there. 1 + 1 + 1 in kindergarten is 3. But on Sundays, 1 + 1 + 1 is 1. Why am I confused? See, we are wondering about this society today. Look at the society. I was sitting at a booth the other day giving at a Dawa booth on this campus. And this Christian came by singing his praises to Jesus. A'udhu billah. To attract my attention, I'm reading Surah Yasin. So my mind is not on this man. But as soon as I hear him say Esau's name, I know he is coming towards me with an attack. So I asked this man, I got this from one of the sheikhs in Oklahoma City. This is the approach that I use with him. I said, 1 plus 1 plus 1. Can you answer this question for me, please, brother? You know, humble. He said, I don't want to answer. Why? Because he's confused. He knows 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. Not 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 1. Now, can you imagine that someone that has this mentality, if they come to you and you say, Mahu Islam, huwa tawhidullah, and then you tell them this in English, what's their reaction going to be? They're going to say, I know a brother sitting in this room, I'm not going to point him out. Because see, when I used to give Dawa, I used to tell him, oh, it means peace, oh, it means submission. And the brother, he told me, tell him about Tawhidullah. What you learn about Tawhidullah for? So you could keep it in here? No, you're supposed to tell it to the people. So this brother has given Dawa in Oklahoma City. And every time he tells one of those people about Tawhidullah, do you know what their reply is? I never knew it was like that. That's what it is. You see, because everybody in their nature knows Tawhidullah. Even if they're kuffar, in somewhere deep in their heart, they know what is Tawheed. So the attraction to me to Islam was Allah himself, not no man. Okay, you see. This is the attraction for you too. And for these people here. Is Allah. And then after Allah who? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. After him the Sahaba. See, because if I look at myself as an example for Muslims, I'm going to fall short. You see. Last night we had a lecture, a class on kufr and shirk and how this leads into becoming a munafiq. Okay. And we all came to the conclusion that out of the 8 qualities of kufr, we were all 8 for 8. Out of the 7 qualities for shirk, we were 7 for 7. And out of the qualities of munafiqs, we were all of those too. So how could I look at anyone now as an example as a good Muslim? I need to look at the Sahaba. After the Sahaba, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is who we look at. This is our example. These people, no one in the last 300 years, no. The Sahaba. Then after them, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You see, this is the invite. This is what draws your attention. When you are used to hearing all this pagan nonsense in those churches, and then someone tells you the hadith about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the Sahaba says, "Oh, we're so hungry, we had tied stones to our stomach, Rasulullah, ya Rasulullah, please, something, please." And then he lifts up he has 2 stones. Do you know what kind of effect this has on somebody? Coming from this society, this is the attraction to Islam for me.
Did you care about religion before?
Actually, I was a professional in the dunya. I was a pro. I was talking to a brother from Pakistan one time in a car. And I said, man, you don't want this dunya. So what you mean? I said, man, I used to run this dunya, man. I used to think that I ran the dunya. But the dunya was being shoved down my mouth so fast that I couldn't even say. I'm running around a mulberry bush, you see, because I heard Imam Siraj would say on a tape, Imam Siraj Wahaj, that you cannot satisfy the human desires because the human desires are infinite. You will never satisfy your nafs. Where are your nafs going to be satisfied? You know this answer, the Jannah. You chase it here, up there you get it to you. So my focus was not even on, I didn't even care. Because the church had failed me.
There are 2 barriers that Muslims face in propagating Dawa here.
Yes.
First, I don't care about religion.
Yeah.
In America. No big deal. I don't care about religion. The two barriers that Muslims dua face in America. Yeah, you can talk to me about it. He will be so polite. He will listen to you. Yes, I agree. It makes sense. But he doesn't care about religion. This is one of the main barriers that we have. How can we overcome this? How can the brothers, when they talk, overcome this?
Overcome the person who doesn't care. Tawhidullah.
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 Oh, yeah, cool. Brother, the same question for you also. Am I discriminating? Sister on the other side, please. Pardon me if I don't know your names. On the far. All right.
The first question. I'm not as dynamic a speaker as you.
Okay.
What was it?
The first question, we are not asking why you became a Muslim.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah, you are a Muslim now. We are asking, give us some advice as how to present Islam from your experience that really made you think of Islam from the beginning. What is a really sparking point that sparked in you and said, well, let me look into that thing. See, Americans read a lot. And there are a lot of books about Islam. Yet, you don't have them to read the book. As if this book that says Islam has something in it. Jinx. Don't touch it. What is it that made you get interested in the beginning?
Well, I came from a different background where I was very, very Christian. And at one point in time, I got very disillusioned and decided to call myself agnostic, even though I believed that there really was a God. Which one?
Talk into both microphones.
Okay.
Don't look at him. Look at
And I forgot my train of thought. So, at the time when I found out about Islam, it was hard. First of all, most Americans, especially American Christians, are very ignorant about Islam. They don't know anything. They say, so what do you believe? What do you pray to? That kind of business. And when you just tell them that we believe in God the same way that Christians sort of, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's the same God because there's only one, that they start to listen to you and understand. Although, as being a former Christian, in Christianity, the people will tell you don't listen to anything that doesn't have to do with Christianity because this is all the devil talking to you. And so there are a lot of Christians, especially the very religious ones or devout ones, that will not listen to you because you believe something different. And so a lot of times the thing that I would do and that we end up doing is arguing about Prophet Jesus and about what the differences are between Christianity and between Islam. And this was the hardest part for me in reverting, I guess you call it. It took me 6 months to decide about what I was going to believe about Jesus, because I believed all the other things that Islam said. To me it was, as the brother said, it's much more rational to me to understand, because any Christian you ask about what is the Trinity, what does that mean, they don't know. Nobody is very clear on that. And it's because it doesn't make sense. But to me it made a lot more sense, but I still had a hard time to say in one sentence that Jesus is not the Son of God without feeling like I was saying blasphemy. And for 6 months it took me to decide that that was true, that this is right. And if you think about it, and probably some of you won't agree with me, but the difference is a small matter. We believe the same about Mary being a virgin. We believe the same about Jesus being a very great prophet, great man. The difference is mainly in divinity, I guess is the word. And to me that wasn't so hard, except it just took me a while to decide. So that's what I would say, is mainly start arguing about this, at least with Christians. I can't speak for Jews. I don't know that much about what the Jews believe. So that's what I would say, is to try to understand. And there is another argument about when people say, well, if Prophet Jesus didn't have a father, then therefore, this is what they say. And then a lot of argument is, well, what about Adam? Had no mother or father, so is he doubly divine? And usually they don't have an answer to that one. So we can believe that Jesus didn't have a father, but we don't have to believe that about a divinity there. So this is where they're confused, and it's a hard issue from their standpoint.
Yes,
I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
What I'm basically hearing again is to tell the brothers and sisters who were born Muslims is that the number one issue, the number one strength, the most strong argument that we have as Muslims is to discuss the concept of God from the Islamic perspective. Brother Isa talked about Tawheed. That's basically the concept of God in Islam. So this is one of the strongest points you have, is to discuss about Tawheed without getting into arguments as Jesus, Son of God or not Son of God, why he should be, why he should die on the cross. That's a question that you probably do not want to get into because you never reach to an end. Am I right?
But in order for someone to embrace Islam as a Christian, they have to reject the Christian point. And that is the biggest division between Christianity and Islam and Christians.
You see, we have a problem with the sound. So the only way to solve the problem is to get very close to the mic. Okay, so you just push it to you as close as possible. This is not close, more than that.
I'm not a singer.
My point, sister, is that do we need to stress more about the concept of God in Islam, or sit down and argue about whether Jesus is the Son of God or not?
No, I think you're right. It's better to just tell the belief straight first, but I think in the end you're going to get into this argument. But at the beginning, not to start on arguing and being confrontational, but to just say, this is how we believe, this is why we believe, and to go from there.
Thank you. Next is Brother Rashid. Now they gave me the names now. Go ahead, Brother Rashid, give us your thoughts. And I would like you to touch on some books that you read about Islam, the Quran particularly. Did the Quran impress you by any way? It is hard to read. Even the translation doesn't give you the meaning. You have to know the background of the Quran. So it's not... tell us about your experience. And we'll draw lessons from your experience in Dawa, inshallah. No.
2 years ago, there was a boy who had no guidance whatsoever. Now, this little boy ran the streets. My brother over here talks about the dunya. This is all that this little boy had at this time. This was his life, the dunya. He robbed, steal, maybe even killed at times. Doesn't know. Eventually, this little boy ended up where most people that follow the rules and regulations of the dunya end up, and that's the penitentiary. In the penitentiary, this little boy was hungry because there was nothing in his heart. So as he searched for the truth, somebody gave him a word, salam. He said, explain this word. They gave him a Quran. They narrated hadith. Now in the beginning he did not understand this, so he rejected it. He was an atheist, and his whole philosophy was that whatever I do, whether I have to kill, rob, or steal, God will be satisfied with me because that's what I need to do to survive. Well, this boy spent 2 years of his life in the penitentiary. Within about the last 6 months of his life in the penitentiary, he finally decided to go to Jummah services. When he went to Jummah services, the imam was reciting from the Quran. And what he was reciting seemed to be exactly what this boy was looking for. Turns out that after about 2 or 3 times of going to Jummah, he decided to pray, something that he has never done before. In this line of salah, his heart was touched and he cried. He felt compassion and mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet he was not a Muslim. About 2 months later, this little boy took his shahada. This boy that spent 2 years of his life in the penitentiary and came to Islam by simply going to Jummah service is I. That little boy is me, the Muslim that you see before you now. The thing that helped me come to Islam was that it was very simple. There were no complex phrases. There were no elaborate illusions, so to speak. It was very simple and very clear. And since the life that I was living at that time was very complex and confusing, this wasn't. And this attracted me. It says in the Injil that doctrines created by man cause confusion. And everything else that I had was by man and caused confusion. So when I got a hold of Islam and the Quran, something that was revealed from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there was no confusion and it was clear and it touched my heart. So if it were not for the clear teaching of Islam and not trying to make it so elaborate as some of the Christians or Jews do, where they think it has to be something so magnificent that you just can't understand. If you want to deliver Islam to the brothers and sisters in this land, make it simple. Explain to them what peace is. That is the basic nature, the innate nature of every human being that is on this planet is salam. Explain to them the most beautiful greeting, assalamu alaikum. Explain this to them, but make it simple. Don't be complex, and you will find yourself someone that will become a Muslim.
Jazakallah khair.
Wa yak, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, brother. This is a very important point that brother is pointing to. Many times out of our zeal and enthusiasm to talk about Islam, when someone asks me about what is this word or salah or prayer or salamu alaikum means, I go and give him 2 hours lecture. And he will listen, and then he probably start yawning. And they will say, these guys don't know what they're talking about, and they leave. Keeping it brief and simple. This is what you are asking us to do, advising us to do. And that's what brought him, brother, to Islam. It's just simple explanation of a word. Jazakallah khair. Brother talked also about how he has been involved in the dunya, and to the degree that he went to the penitentiary. And at this point, maybe I'll ask a brother who's experienced in Dawa in the prisons. And Brother Abdul Salam is here. I will give him 5 minutes to give us talk about his efforts in the prisons. Brother Abdul Salam.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm just here to remind the brothers and sisters the importance of continuing in our dawah. Brother Suhaib here is in our Jamaat in Oklahoma City.
Bring it closer.
Assalamu alaikum. The brother here, Suhaib, he's a new Muslim. He took Shahadatain about a year ago. And what we do, we work at the flea market there, inviting people to Islam. Excuse me. Assalamu alaikum. Okay. Well, we work at the flea market. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Suhaib, and myself and a few other brothers work at the Old Paris Flea Market in Oklahoma City. We have been there for 5 years, and we come in contact with different cultural peoples from all over the world, about 250 each weekend. And in the process there we have an opportunity to meet Christians, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists, and atheists. They come to our booth and inquire about Islam. Alhamdulillah, some have taken Shahadatain. Approximately out of the 5 years, 5 have taken Shahadatain from the booth there in Oklahoma City. And then we work in the Oklahoma City County Jail. 25 brothers have taken Shahadatain. And the Medill prison system. Last Thursday, Brother Suhaib gave his first Islamic study program class in the Medill prisons. We have another brother here, Brother Hakeem, a new Muslim, for a year, and he started his Dawa and Islamic study program in Oklahoma City County Jail. I'm just here to remind myself and remind the brothers to continue with the Dawa. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, brother. Want papers? Next, we go to the right wing, and Sister Cheryl Siddiqui. She is the chairman of the Board of Education at Peace Elementary School and Tulsa Montessori School, and she's very active in Dawa. We'd like to have her experience touching on little more things besides what is already mentioned. Please, sister, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
The things that have been mentioned, for me, really were the most important things. I grew up in a very comfortable situation, really had no reason to leave my position. But three things happened when I was a youngster. When I was in 5th grade, we studied religions as part of our Sunday school. And our own Sunday school teacher, a Christian, told us about Islam in, one day. Half an hour, 15 minutes maybe even, who knows the time when you're young. It made sense to me then, but years later it was still troubling me. I was in a Christian family in a very secure community. I was very involved with it. But we were taught the 10 Commandments, and the first of those 10 Commandments is, "You shall have no other gods before me." And to have a Trinity seemed to me like multiple gods, and I could not assimilate that. Another part was that I felt that there was a mistranslation in the Bible. Now, I was a youngster, so I didn't dare say too much to the elders around me, but I always felt that Jesus was a son of God like the rest of God's children. And so this stuck with me all the way through school, and when I got to college I had the opportunity to meet many people from different places, and I asked them about their religions and their cultures. And if you know me, you know that I do tend to collect those kinds of people around me. And the first person that could answer a question about Islam for me ended up being my husband, alhamdulillah. But I did not convert to Islam right away. I was fortunate in that his family, who's here in the States, gave me short pamphlets. And I really mean, I had no reason to immediately leave the situation I was in. But the pamphlets gave me some information. With the information he gave me verbally and the information in these short pamphlets, not the thick Quran. That's too much to take on if you don't know what you're doing. The short pamphlets were very helpful. And between classes or when I'd come home at night from classes, I would read through these. It was less than a month of reading those kinds of things that I was ready to go and see the Sunday school. And thank God the Sunday school there was a very open Sunday school, multiracial, multi-ethnic. And these people accepted me as a non-Muslim who was curious. Being accepted for what I was as a person with value was important to me. I respected their dress code, although I didn't dress to a T. They forgave me for that, and I continued in my studies. And about 6 or 8 months after my first time to the masjid, I converted to Islam, or reverted as you like to say. But you see that there was never a change in my heart. In my heart, I had been a Muslim from the day I was born. Otherwise, why would have I had trouble with the Son of God? Why would I have had trouble with "You shall have no other gods before me"? I was a Muslim from day one. I was encouraged to change my name, but I felt my identity had always been the same. My beliefs had never changed. Why did it take me so long to take Shahada? Because it seemed like a package deal, and I wanted to know what I was getting myself into because my belief had been strong from day one. The things that I would recommend to you as you do your dawah: don't use any Arabic words if you're not dealing with Arabs. Deal in the language people understand. Islam is such a simple religion, but it's complicated by words people don't understand. They're alienating. When people are ready to learn that, they'll ask you. Answer their questions, give them references, let them take it home, mull it over. Don't criticize them for the way they dress, for the beliefs they hold. Only give them information. It worked for me. I've seen it work for people around me. The people I've seen who became Muslims the first day without a very strong support system are nervous for years. They can't, as Sister Cindy has said, they have a real problem sometimes in that they've denounced their Jesus who was their Lord before if they were Christian, but we didn't give them something better. And it takes so much energy and love and nurturing and somebody caring about you to dare to have that faith in God that will carry you through. Allah has given us in His mercy supporters, people with a good heart and good intentions, and we need to make the most of what we have. No matter what it is you have, you do have something that Allah has given you, and it is our opportunity to share that with others. Have I answered your question?
Yes, wonderful. That was another important aspect in what makes people change. In America, let us be very straightforward here. American people from the beginning, they are raised on passing information. What do you think? I mean, I'm a pediatrician, he didn't tell you that. But when I have a 2-year-old, 3-year-old child, and I tell his mom he needs a shot, she doesn't say, yeah, give it to him. She'll say, John, what do you think? You want to take a shot or medicine? And I laugh. And if he says medicine, he takes medicine, not a shot. So let us really understand this very important aspect in the raising of the American, in the evolution actually of the American mentality. It's not like some of our mentalities overseas. And therefore, we have to adjust our way of da'wah in passing information, not forcing information. Passing very nicely, very softly the information. Information, information, information. Education, education, education. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He instructs His Prophet and tells him, لَيْسَ عَلَيْكَ هُدَاهُمْ. It's not up to you whether they follow the straight path or not. It's not up to you whether they will accept Islam or not. It is up to them. Your job is mainly to pass information. And that is a point we need really to stress very much, inshallah, in our approach to bring the non-Muslims who are still outside there, not enjoying the treasures of Islam, the beauty of this religion, to bring them back and let them join with us and share us these treasures of Islam. Next is Brother Suhaib. Well, you get me confused between you and him. You are Isa, you're Suhaib, and he is Isa. He made me confused. Brother Isa, you're next. Now, tell us something that he didn't say. Tell us about something that attracted you to Islam that he did not say. It's not mentioned. Unique.
Something unique. Before I came to this conference, I prepared a little speech here, but I don't think it fits in with what we're talking about, so I'm going to go wing it a little bit. You guys are going to have to stay with me. I hope my logic doesn't go astray or anything. First, I'd like to say, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. Brothers, I'm not a scholar. I'm just somebody that has come to this religion. I do not know much, so you must understand that I might say something that is might be controversial or something like that. What was unique, I think, about coming to Islam was when I picked up the book and I started reading, and I read Al-Fatiha, and I went and I took it to a brother and I said, can you please translate this word for word for me? And we started talking, and I had Yusuf Ali's translation there. And we got into this context of this one word, or Yusuf Ali had translated it into servant. Okay? And the brother looks at it and he kind of shakes his head and he goes, oh, he goes, I don't want to offend you or anything, but I don't think Yusuf Ali's translation is too correct on this. He goes, I think this is better translated into the word slave. I kind of went, what? You know, slavery here in America doesn't have a really good connotation, and we're all independent people. We don't like to think about ourselves as slaves. Well, we sat there and we got in a pretty good talk about this, and he started talking about, well, you know, if you're a servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can stop. What do servants do? Inshallah, they go to work, and then they quit. But a slave has to stay there. He is always under the eyes of his master. He's always having to serve his master. He is always having to think about what he is doing and if he's doing it right. And that is something that I got very attracted to in Islam. You know, these negative connotations about slavery and stuff like that, we beat it to death. We say, you know, it's the racism and stuff like that. But we don't understand that being a slave to a human being, something that is fallible, something that we can understand and relate to, is wrong. But being a slave to something that is loving, that is gracious, that is caring, something that wants us to have happiness in this life, something that wants us to grow, to mature, is very essential. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was what brought me to Islam. I used to have extreme problems with Christianity, trying to talk about the Trinity and stuff like that. And it was this belief in this one God, but this one God that made me a slave. That in every day, I had to go through my life thinking about what I was doing. It's because in Christianity, a lot of my Catholic friends and stuff like that, oh, okay, we go to church, okay, let's go get a drink. You know, oh, yeah, I'm going to go see my girlfriend after church. You know, my girlfriend's with me at church and stuff like that. You know, they aren't constantly thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the relationship on this earth with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is something that I think will strike every Christian that you talk to, every Jew that you talk to, everybody that you talk to be responsible. That we are slaves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we have something that we have to answer to. And all of you out here need to think about what you're doing. And I need to think about doing it. I'm constantly scared about what I'm doing, the way I'm dressing. You know, I came to here, you know, maybe I should wear Western clothes, Islamic clothes, you know. I couldn't make up my mind. Last night I went out and I was thinking about this, and I went about a quarter mile away from my house, and I heard the thunder go, and I go, alhamdulillah, you know, it's God talking to me. And all of a sudden, you know, it starts pouring rain on top of me, and I had to run all the way home. It got soaking wet. So, you know, we shouldn't just do something because somebody tells us this is right. We should do it because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We shouldn't make excuses for our actions, because we will have to answer for these things. Inshallah, brother, that's all I'd like to say. Just think about every action that you do. Make sure that you have a good, rational reason for doing what you're doing, or that it comes into the context of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't understand it, make sure that you go and get information about it. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, brothers. I hope I've said everything correctly.
Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Takbir! Takbir! Allahu Akbar. Jazakallah khair. That was wonderful. So you want to be called slave?
Slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm slave to no one else. I am slave to no one else.
Slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is freedom, actually. In a little talk to the high schools in my town, high school students, I said, I don't have anything prepared. What we're going to do is, I want to say Islam and Muslims. And I want you to tell me what do you think of when I say Islam and Muslims. And each one of them will just bring a word, and I write it on the board, and then we talk about this. One of them was that Muslims are not afraid. Muslims, no fear. Now, if you are a slave, you are always in fear. If you are a slave to humans. When you become a slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no fear. That was surprising to hear from a 17-year-old high school student that Muslims are not afraid. Another word was, Muslims are simple. I said, are they hillbillies? Is that what you meant? She said, no, not hillbillies. Hillbillies mean these guys who just, tell what's hillbillies?
Look up there in those mountains. Country.
Country guys who are not much of civilized, and are not polished. No shoes?
No shoes.
No shoes? They dress like you?
No.
Overalls. Anyway, she said, no, they're not hillbillies, but they are simple. I see them relaxed. These are other things that we need to kind of pay attention to. One more important point that Brother Isa has mentioned is that the terms, using these terms, let us not forget that the English language is a Christian language. In a way, when you say prayer, does not really mean what we mean. And I would like to now ask you to tell me, I'll pick a couple of you because don't have time, to tell me when we say I'm going to prayer. When you say to a Christian I'm going to prayer, that means I'm going to go ask God some favors. And pick on some of these terms that we use commonly, that you heard before you became a Muslim, that kind of tell the brothers and sisters, use them in proper connotation. Let's start with you.
With prayer, the remembrance that I have of being a Christian is that prayer is, in Islam, prayer is like you're addicted to this. You see, like you have to get this battery charged 5 times a day. If you miss one charge, you kind of run, you know. If you miss 2, you might not be able to make it to the rest of the day. You see. When I was a Christian, praying was not so. When you prayed, you didn't really like. Sometimes I pray in Islam, and of course my mind is not in the masjid many times. You know, it's out there in the university or at my job, or you know, I'll be honest, okay. But then you would think about this. You say, astaghfirullah. My mind should be, you know, on Allah. But when you're a Christian, you just pray. It's like you don't make wudu. You can pray in the bathroom. I mean, this is how I have to show you the 2 extremes. Okay, you can pray in the bathroom. You can pray in a pigsty, anywhere. Okay, praying in Christianity. I just remember, like my mother would say, you know, recite the Lord's Prayer before you go to sleep. Do you remember this? Mm-hmm. You know, I don't even remember it. Or just ask, you know, say, you know, praise be to whatever. You would just, I mean, wherever you were. I mean, you just would, it wasn't even something that was important to you. Praying was not as important as trying to sing better than the person next to you in the Sunday school. So in comparison to Islam, it's almost impossible. Because prayer in Christianity does not mean salah or prayer in Islam at all. It's because it's saying in a hadith I read more or less to the meaning that even when you are making wudu, you are in salah. You see, don't run to the iqamah, because when you are in wudu, you are already making salah because your mind is on the salah. Why are you making wudu? So that you can pray. But in Christianity, you don't go when you're going to the church. You don't make dhikr. Or your mind is not there. Once you get there, I was talking to someone yesterday or something. I said, when I used to go to church, I used to wonder what we were having for lunch before I even went to the church service, you know, or what girl was there, astaghfirullah, or you know, this. I mean, your mind is not on Allah because, you know, once again with the 3 and all this, well, how can your mind be focused on anything? So it's almost, I can't even explain it, but the concept of salah, how it should be explained to them is you would have to take them to your personal, using of course the Quran and Hadith, but as best you can of how you look at it, because everybody's salah, their focus might be on a different vibe than anyone else. It's hard for me to explain. You have to forgive me.
Well, the difficulty of some brothers, all of us, when we say I'm going to do my prayer, I really want to explain to them what does prayer mean. As you said, prayer does not mean salah.
It's dua, to us, to the Muslim, if you have never, alhamdulillah, I pray that you never do go to a church. If you saw what they were doing as praying, you would say they're making dua. They just make dua.
Is it worship?
They are. It's considered not to us. It's shirk, of course, but to them they consider this part of their. I guess you would say their worship.
What is worship?
The worship in Christianity is not something like, and as a Muslim like this. This could be your worship. Why are you here? Because you want to learn about Allah. So this, you inshallah, if your niyyah is correct, you will get hasana. You will get ajr for this, good rewards. But a Christian, once a week, Once a week they'll go to the church, sing, praise, jump up and down, speak in tongues, faint, okay? And then tomorrow they might be passed out in the alley drunk. Even if you look here, the liquor stores, what day do they close on? Sunday. See? Because this is the day they feel that this day, this is all they need to do.
So we have been asked. No, I'm not. She is next. Thank you for reminding me. Anyway, you are doing wonderful. So he put me on the spot. He put me on the spot. Said, "Do this now," and he can now give me instructions. Isn't that? That is wonderful. We have to be really careful. In other words, when we present Islam to non-Muslims, as to these terms, and try to develop in our probably thinking as how brief we can be in explaining what salah means and what slave means and all other even Allah. We have to kind of and many other things that before you talk to the non-Muslim, try to see what did he understand when you said that word. Sister Amina tell me she's a da'iyah, and I would like to give her the microphone now and give us, hopefully, the cream of the crop.
Assalamu alaikum. I ask you to bear with me first because I have a voice that comes and goes. Okay. First I have to say that, I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, and I was very solid in my beliefs. I was very involved in the church, and the Christianity that I practiced was not like what I just heard described, okay? We really did worship, and the religious practices were an integral part of everything that we did. And you have to understand that just as there are Eid Muslims, there are Sunday Christians, but as there are Muslims who practice all of the time, there are also Christians who practice all of the time, and that their religion is a very solid and important part of their belief. I was a Sunday school teacher, president of the Youth for Christ. I was very, very involved and I was studying to be a minister, and my whole goal in life was to bring the religion of Southern Baptist to all the people of the world. Now, doing Dawa is something that varies with the people that you're talking to. And the first step in doing Dawa is to know the people that you're talking to. Because if you approach someone in the wrong way, you can wave goodbye to them. You're probably not going to get anywhere at all with them. To help understand this a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and relate a little bit of my story anyway, partly because on the very first day, people were promised that I would, and that that was promised by a gentleman on the first day, and also then I have delayed telling the sisters separately because they were promised that they would get to hear a little bit. So I'm not going to tell the whole thing, just a little bit. Okay? I learned about Islam through a computer error. Okay? No, I had no desire to learn about Islam at all. I was not unhappy in my faith. I was very content, very secure in my faith. As a Southern Baptist, I had no desire to learn about any other religion. I had heard, I come from a little tiny town in southern part of Oklahoma originally. I was studying in Denver, Colorado at the university. Okay? I had heard about different faith groups, and I was very liberal. I mean, I was a Southern Baptist. I talked to Catholics. Okay, I pre-registered using the computer for my classes, which were in education. And I came back to Oklahoma to take care of my grandmother over the summer. We had some problems, and she was very ill, and I didn't go back to school until 2 weeks late. At the school I attended, 2 weeks into the semester, you take an F or you take the class. Well, the computer had put me into a theater class. I mean, this was a class where I was going to have to stand on stage and perform. And at that point, I was so shy that I would pass out before I would speak to anyone. I was in my 3rd semester and still hadn't talked to any of the other students at all. I had talked to a couple of teachers, but not to any student. I was so shy. The word's reticent that we use. I walked into the classroom in my usual attire, a pair of leather hot pants and a halter top, and looked around the classroom, and oh my God, it was full of desert niggers, Arabs. I had heard about these people. I had been warned by our minister. I had been warned. I knew. And I was not even going to walk into the room and risk catching some kind of a disease from these unclean heathens. So I went home and I talked to my husband and explained to him what was going on. And my husband he's a very special person. And he said, well, first of all, I was the religious one in the family. He said, you always tell me that everything that happens, Jesus has a purpose for it. Now, do you really think that Jesus would have put you there if he didn't have a purpose for you to be there? So I went back 2 days later, filled with the zeal, and I walked into that class to convert those poor ignorant heathens and save them from the fires of hell. And I preached fire and brimstone, and I warned them how they were going to burn in the fires of hell forever, and they smiled, but nobody converted. So I changed tactics, and I went back, and I started talking about Jesus' love and how he had died on the cross for us to save us from our sins, and everybody smiled, but nobody converted. So now I'm faced with finding another way to approach these poor ignorant people. They were more ignorant than I had thought. And so I got a copy of this book called the Koran, okay? And I proceeded to go through that book to try and find every point I could find to show them how foolish they were to believe in this book. And I went through that Koran over and over again for the next 2.5 years. All the time, only looking for that information to use to convert them. And then one day there was a knock on my door. And I opened the door, and you have to understand, I had only met the brothers on campus up to that point, okay? I opened the door, and there's a brother standing in front of me in a long white nightgown with a red and white checkered tablecloth sitting on his head. Not only that, he had 3 brothers with him in pajamas. Now, the one wearing the tablecloth looks at me and he says, I understand you want to be a Muslim. And I looked at her and said, not me, I'm a Southern Baptist. And I said, but I have some questions I'd like to have you answer for me. Now, I was in a pair of shorts, okay? I was, when they came. They didn't say, Uda Billah, Astaghfirullah, anything like that. They came into my apartment and they sat down and spent quite a few hours of my asking all of these questions, and the brothers were very tolerant. They were very patient. They never got upset with me. They never got irritated with me. They talked openly. They were able to answer and explain and clarify all of this information that I had gleaned out of the Quran. Until finally, Abdulaziz al-Sheikh, he was the one in the nightgown and the tablecloth, okay? And he looked at me and he said, really, he said, do you believe there's only one God? And I said, well, yes, I do. And do you believe that Muhammad is the messenger of God? And I said, well, yes, but, I still have some problems. And he says, well, this is like climbing a ladder. And the first step of this is for you to admit to what you believe so that you can go on learning from there. Well, I ended up taking Shahada that day, okay? But it was a qualified Shahada. Some of you already heard, okay? I said Shahada, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and I will never cover my hair, and if my husband takes another wife, I'll castrate him. Now, the brothers did not admonish me. They exhibited enormous patience with me, enormous patience as I look back. And they said nothing. And then Abdulaziz told the others, tell everyone to leave this sister alone and let her grow on her own. I don't want anyone using the word haram around her. I don't want anyone telling her what she has to do or what she cannot do. The brother had great insight. About 6 months later, on the campus, one of the men came up to me and said, "Oh, it's so nice to see you wearing hijab." I said, "I don't wear hijab." And he says, "Have you looked at yourself recently?" And I turned around, I looked in the window of the schoolroom, and I had a scarf on my head and long sleeves and a long dress on. And I'd never knew it. Now, when I embraced Islam, my family was very hostile. They were furious. My sister, the psychiatrist, arranged to have me committed to a mental institute. My father, the jovial southern clown, proceeded to climb in his Ford pickup truck and drive up to Colorado to shoot me because it would be better that I be dead than land deeper in the fires of hell. Okay? Ford pickup truck would not take him north. He head south, that truck would purr on just fine. He head north, that truck would die. Now, my mother was tolerant. Mothers are very tolerant, right? We know this. My mother says, it's a phase. She'll outgrow it. It'll go away. My husband reacted in a slightly different way. He packed my bags and set them on the front porch and told me that I could come home when I'd come to my senses. He threw me and the children out. And I'm going, I don't understand this. I don't want to go into all of the details right now. Later, inshallah. Over the course of time, as I learned, I proceeded to treat my parents according to the Quranic injunctions. Okay, the first to come to Islam was my grandmother at 103. Okay, 2 years, please. 2 years later, my mother came to me and she says, "I don't know what this Quran thing is that you're reading, but I like what it's doing to you, and I hope you stay with it." A year later, she came and asked me how to take, what it took to become a Muslim, and I told her, you say that there's only one God, Muhammad is the messenger of God, and she says, yeah, any fool knows that. And I says, that's it. She says, well, what do you do? What do you do to become a Muslim? And I said, that's it, Mom. You admit that there's only one God and that Muhammad is the messenger. She looked at me and she looked at the floor and she says, okay, but let's not tell your dad yet. My father became Muslim. My stepfather became Muslim. Aunts became Muslim. Many members of my family became Muslim. My husband and I entered in divorce, a very ugly legal dispute where they took my children away from me because they said the unorthodox religion would be detrimental for the development of the children, which set me to battling because many sisters came forward and told me their stories, how they lost their children. That same court that took my children away from me now will honor Islamic law if there is anything involving divorce or child custody with a Muslim being involved in it, because we went back and we fought to change it so other sisters wouldn't suffer what I did. My husband was the greatest loss to me because I loved him very dearly. He was a very, very good man, and it was very hard for me to have to leave him. And the divorce was very bitter, but the Quranic injunctions on the way a divorce was supposed to be were incumbent upon me. So even though he was being hostile and angry and abusive even, I persisted in treating him amicably and never saying anything against him. In Islam, in a divorce, we're supposed to part amicably, friendly. So I never spoke against him. I never spoke harshly to him. I returned every bad thing he did with something good. And just for the sake of my children was what I was doing it for. A little over a year ago, one of my co-workers went to visit him and to visit my son. And when he came back, my co-worker is glowing. He's just radiating. And I said, well, did they send me a message? Is my son going to come to visit me? And he said, well, your son's not going to come this year. He says, but your ex-husband took Shahada. 16 years, okay? 16 years of demonstrating Islam, not cramming it down their throats. But he took Shahada. I tell you these things because the most important thing in delivering Dawa is you. It's how you behave. Do you display the Quran to the people? Or are you talking empty words? I never once attacked anyone, as my teachers never attacked my beliefs. They never attacked anything I believed. They gave me this gift of Islam. They gave me the beauty of the Quran. They gave me the beauty of showing me how much Allah loved me. They didn't tell me I was wrong in anything that I was doing. They showed me Islam. And the very beauty of Islam was enough to attract me to it. It didn't take any kind of changing my mind about anything with their verbal attacks. I came to understand slowly and gradually, and to make the changes within myself. But if you really want to do Dawa, this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's you. If the Quran is in you, then open up and let the Quran shine through you. Know how to answer their questions and explain, this oppressive thing called hijab. Be able to discuss that. Be able to discuss polygamy. Be able to discuss what's going on. Be knowledgeable. Don't be afraid. Don't apologize for anything in Islam. If you are apologizing for something in Islam, you don't understand it. So go find someone who knows better and tell the person, I can't answer this, but let me find someone who will, and I'll call you back. And call them back. Call them back. Stay at their sides. Because they need that support. The people are hungry. And Islam has all the answers. And we're a very selfish group if we don't give them a chance to learn about it. That's all. Assalamu alaikum.
That was wonderful. However, I'm still confused, sister. You said that leave them alone to grow on their own. Well, but how give me guidance. When you become a Muslim now, what should I do? Shall I come and knock every day and say Islam and the Quran and Muhammad and Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and all this, or shall I just leave you alone to grow on your own?
When I say leave them alone, I mean, in the case of the sisters, don't try to force them into the hijab right away, because the hijab is something you wear fisabilillah. This is something you do for the sake of Allah. What works well is to invite people to your home for dinner, to invite them to go shopping, to bring them into your life, to make them a part of what you do. And then in the course of everything you do. My children, when they were little, I don't believe in isolation. I never isolated my children. But my home was where all the children came to play. All of the neighborhood children came to play in my home. Yes, it was more work, but I knew what my children were doing. And when it was time to pray, then all of the children would go and sit down quietly while my children joined me in prayer. They didn't go home, they sat and quietly watched. As time went, several of the children began to pray with us. As time went, some of the parents began to pray with us too. But by having the constant contact with them, the thing that is detrimental is this constant attack. I had one sister who came to me in tears at the ISNA headquarters a few years ago. And she said, Amina, I took Shahada and I wish I never had. And I was so hurt. I was so hurt. She says, your religion is full of haram. Everything is haram. High heels are haram. Hair is haram. Makeup is haram. Singing is haram. Speaking is haram. Smiling is haram. She says, this is the only word I'm hearing from everything. She says, I can't breathe for fear that I'm committing haram. Now, she lived in another town. Nobody had ever talked of Allah and Allah's love and mercy to her. They just told her everything she wasn't supposed to do. And she was royally turned off. But if you have constant contact with people, you're demonstrating Islam. You don't have to tell them that they have to do this. They see it because they see you doing it. So when I say leave them alone, I just mean don't harp on them. But share it with them. Give them this gift.
Wonderful explanation. The time is over. We have about 6 minutes past the time, and but before we finish this session, I would like to ask one on each side to come and give us something that you'd like to say about this issue, in brief. and especially the ones of you who are really involved in Dawa, give us some more advice. We have I see hands, 1, 2, brother, take the microphone.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? All the way to the back? Could you please raise your hand if you can hear me? Wonderful. Jazakallah khair. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. This is my first visit to ISNA conference, and it's been a very blessed experience. I come from Dallas. My wife, I've been married for close to 17 years, and she comes from a Christian family, and because of my ignorance to the religion, I lag way behind. One of the things that really impresses me about what I hear today is how you have to send the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala among the people that are around us. The most important part of delivering our message is not to intimidate people. We should not, by any stretch of the imagination, underestimate the power of human mind. I have listened to sisters over here. I've listened to brothers over here. I go to Dawa meetings in our masjid in Dallas almost every Sunday, and I see a degree of the delivery of a message that's not appropriate or conducive to the environment that surrounds us. We have to recognize that we live in a country where we have a voice, an opinion that we can deliver. And when we deliver the voice or the message, we need to be very humble to the people that surround us. We should not, and I want to stress this very, and it's a serious issue, should not say that this country is full of evils, or this civilization, or this or that. We should always think in terms of this is the land that belongs to Allah, and we are just here to deliver His message to whomever that surrounds us. It's not the question of the Americans, the Christians, the Jews, or the Hindus, or the Buddhists. We are fortunate that we were born into a Muslim family, but I think the message is clear, and after listening to the sisters over here, I think we need to make sure that our messages are delivered with sincerity, with devotion, with careful thought. And most of all, we should appreciate the people that come to our Dawa meetings, because without them, we wouldn't be anywhere. So thank you very much. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, brother Adam here, he's going to tell you something too.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When I started going to school, I went to a public school, and all I knew about Islam was that there was only one God, and that Prophet Muhammad was his messenger. That's it. And the rest of the stuff I knew was just from Christians' beliefs, because everybody at the school was Christian, and all the stuff I ever heard and saw on TV and things was Christianity. So I actually kind of like growing up like a Christian. But then after a while, I learned a little bit. My dad tried to explain some of it, and I just learned a little bit. But then when I went to Peace Elementary, I started learning a lot more, and I figured out how come I thought things were so weird, and I was always confused. Because the Christians have all these beliefs. First they're saying like Prophet Isa is a son, or is the first God, or is a prophet, and stuff like that. And they say also that he was dead, he was killed already, and it's his ghost that was put on the cross and stuff like that. They have hundreds of different beliefs. So I was always confused. And then after going to Peace Elementary, it's about my first or second year, and I learned a lot about it, and I figured out why I was always so confused.
Takbir, takbir, just sec. Takbir. Now, your father prayed at home? Was your father Christian? Was your father a Muslim?
My mom was Christian.
Your mother was Christian. Your father was a Muslim? Now, the brother here is raising a very touchy and important point in our lives. And we tend to forget it. Don't forget that your children go to schools with a majority of Christians. Yes, they are public schools, maybe, or some of you may send them to private schools. The majority are Christians, and these kids sit down and discuss about the religion in recess. And you know, he touched me on one point, and he said, I thought I'm more Christian than Muslim until I went to the elementary school, the Peace Elementary School, and now I realized that I'm a Muslim, and I like it better. And his mom later became a Muslim. Let us not forget our children. And Dawa starts in the house, brothers and sisters. Let us revert our children first and prevent them from becoming Christians or Jews. Now, Jazakallah khair, brother. Thank you. Briefly speaking, all this session was primarily about some points of advice from the brothers who reverted to Islam. And I would like to summarize what has been talked about. And sisters. Did I say brothers? Yes, I'm sorry for that. Time is right. Any of the sisters want to say anything today? Yes, yes, sister. Get to the microphone, please. Bring it close.
Inshallah. That's fine. Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I have been involved myself directly or indirectly with many American around me, and there are many women who are working with me within Tulsa and Stillwater area also. And I know spreading the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it takes a lot of patience. And sometimes we think, my goodness, I spent so much time, nobody is becoming Muslim. Don't give up. You have done your best for sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will accept your intention. So keep on trying, come home and make supplication, make dua for them. And like most of the people have done excellent job over here by letting us know how we should approach them. We should never intimidate them. Like one of the brothers mentioned, that's a very important factor. Just be friendly. Try to think of Islamic history, of beginning of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How he spread the Islam, how much patience he has. Even it took him maybe first 9 or 10 years just to get just one Muslim around him. So be patient, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward our effort. Jazakallahu khair.
Jazakallah khair, sister. Next, sister, you want to say something, please?
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu.
Alhamdulillah, I've been Muslim since April of 1988. My love for Islam began actually from a Christian professor at a comparative religion course at the university I was attending. SubhanAllah, he had worked overseas for 4 years and had a very deep respect for the Muslim, and because of his respect, I became very interested in my love for Islam. Was born, SubhanAllah, and I began to study Islam on my own. And me and my best friend, SubhanAllah, Nuran, we both became Muslim together about 2 years after we began studying Islam. The things that helped us the most was, like they said, let people grow in Islam. Believe me, when we saw a real Muslim, a believer, not just someone who says, I'm a Muslim, and they go drink and they go do this and they try to date you and all this, but a real believer, when you see them, you are very attracted to the Muslim because it's the best life available. And really everyone out there, no matter what religion you are, you want the best for yourself. And so if, like, the best dawah a person can do, I assume, is being the Muslim we are supposed to be. And they will come to you. They will ask you questions. Don't try to answer questions they haven't asked yet, because they're not ready to ask them. They will ask. They will ask everything. And just answer what they are asking, and they will keep coming back for more. A person who is growing in Islam is like a baby. When you try to feed the baby, you have to let them breathe, or they're going to suffocate, and they're going to fight it, and they're not going to eat, and they're going to starve, and they're going to die. It's the same way in Islam. You're just born, I feel like, a baby, subhanAllah. There's so much more to learn. The little bit I've learned tells me that there is even more out there, and the more I learn, the more ignorant I feel, subhanAllah. I felt, subhanAllah, when I learned that there was Islam, and for the first time in my life, the confusion. When I was in 3rd grade, I had asked a pastor at the church. I said, Pastor, I don't understand how you can have 3 gods in one. It doesn't make sense. He told me, you don't have enough faith. And I'm relatively a shy person, and I went back to my home. My father's a minister, and I quit asking the questions because I figured, well, something's wrong with me. I don't have enough faith because this doesn't make sense to me. SubhanAllah, when I heard this Christian professor, I think it was near 70, SubhanAllah, he said, if I was a young man, I would be a Muslim. I thought, there's something here. This person wants to be a Muslim, but they are so set in their ways. They have the dunya of retirement and their schedule and everything in their life that they hesitate. They don't take this chance to make their life even better. They don't see that even, subhanAllah, at 103, Islam can take a whole life that has been lived and give you the first and the best thing you can have. Inshallah, I wish, everyone could be a Muslim. And when I first, realized that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was one, and I wasn't crazy, and it wasn't me that was wrong with me, subhanAllah, it was the greatest blessing. And just be a good Muslim, be available, okay? So many times, new Muslims, they want to ask questions. They don't know who to ask. They feel very shy or inhibited. You need to be available. Smile, look at them, say hello, greet them. It's very important. If you greet them and you're friendly, they're going to feel more able to ask the questions they need answered. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very informative. We have 3 things. First, I would like, we have a special guest today, and she's Mrs. Martha Atkinson here. Mrs. Martha Atkinson, is she here?
My mother was, Martha Atkinson is my mom. I was very worried about her. She was sitting in the back, so I was always thinking back there. MashaAllah, she didn't want to stay too long. She had to leave afterwards, so she was gone.
Thank you. Sorry we didn't get to introduce her earlier. There is one brother who want to say a couple of minutes. We are past time, and we're getting close, inshallah. We'll just allow maybe 5 more minutes, and we'll...
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. I have a very small comment to make over here. I want all the new Muslims to realize that all the people, first-rate immigrants, those they came to this country, they traveled to this country and left their country. They came as students. They were not scholars. They did not came to learn Islam over here. They came to learn the worldly matters. So most of the people, those they are over here, they are either scientists, engineers, physicians, or highly qualified people in the technical trades. And they did not came from the background of the religion of Islam. That's the reason in most of them you don't see the religion, the kind you would like to see as among the Muslims, because they came as students and they were not the scholars of Islam. And another thing I want to share with you is that I was reading the poetry of Allama Iqbal a long time ago, and one thing he mentioned in 1940, I consider him to be one of the scholars of Islam, and in the nutshell what he said is that what I can see in my eyes, I can tell you that the people from my nation will travel to a far, far land, and they will create schools, and they will create Islamic institutions, and Islam will revitalize from those institutions. And I can tell you one more thing on that one. This is his saying, that those revitalization centers are not going to be Baghdad or Damascus. They will be far, far places which were unopened to the Muslims before, and I can see that happening. Sadaqallah.
Jazakallah khair. Let me just brief ourselves so that we can get some benefit out of this. And today we heard a lot of advice as to how to present Islam from the experience of those who became Muslims, who reverted to Islam. And we heard from you also. One important point that I would like to stress most, and it was mentioned by the way, is to change this attitude in ourselves toward this society. You are part of this society. You are Americans. You are not in the country of kuffar. All these are not kuffar. You go to them with love and call them, instead of calling kuffar, call them potential Muslims. If this attitude changes from the country of kuffar to a country of potential Muslims, that puts you in the position of a physician. Instead of coming and say, why you get sick? Why you get sick? Don't come to me if you're sick. On the other hand, say, what's wrong with you? What happened? And ask them different questions in a loving, caring manner. And then give them the medicine. And when we give the medicine, by the way, that's another point that was raised today, let them grow on their own. One of the medicines we give is allergy shots. And if you look how we give allergy shots, we go very, very slowly. We give a dilution of 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 1,000, 1 in 100, 1 in 20, 1 in 10. If I have to give the patient the shot of 1 in 10, he will drop dead in shock. Now take that and apply it to how to present Islam. Don't forget that the non-Muslims have been born as non-Muslims, have been raised as non-Muslims. One of the arguments I heard from one of the non-Muslims say, well, I have been in this religion all my life. I really don't want to bother. That's what, not that it's not good. That doesn't make sense. No, I just want to, I have been raised. So de-immunize, gradual, let them grow on their own. Another important point that we heard is that the concept of Tawheed, this is very important aspect in our religion. The concept of God, we need to stress again, again, and again about what do we mean by the word Allah? This slavery concept, like that was beautifully put today. The slavery concept. Many of us are so apologetic. We say, no, we are servants, not slaves of God. We are slaves of God. Exactly as brother explained it to you. And slavery, I mean, imagine, he's a white guy. He's a white man. He says, I'm a slave. Have you heard this in America? Except from a Muslim? He says, I'm a slave. I'm a slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He accepted this term. Slave to Allah, give you the freedom. One other important point we heard today is to be a walking Quran. Let the Quran shine in your actions. And that's what Sayyidina Muhammad was described by Aisha. When he was asked, what's his character? His character was the Quran. He was a walking Quran. Instead of giving him the Quran with the translation that he's not going to understand, show him the Quran. Show me. Show me. That's another thing in America. Don't talk to me. Show me. And that's one other point that we heard today, passing information. And the way to pass the information. Because before you pass information, you better know what you're talking about. If you want to come and sell me something, and you don't know how it works, you better not tell me about it, because I'm not going to buy it. Passing information and the art of passing information. I think that I would stop here, and I would thank you very much. That was very productive part of this convention, and I would like to give now the microphone to the chairman
of this session. And let me give a glad tidings to my brothers and sisters. I'm sure they heard of this ayah before, but remind them of this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وآمنوا برسوله يؤتكم كفلين من رحمته ويجعل لكم نورا. O you who believe, means the people of the book. O you who believe, fear Allah and believe in His last messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah will give you double reward. So for us Muslims, those who were born Muslims, we have only one reward. For those who come from a Christian background or a Jewish background, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them the glad tidings that they will have a double reward. وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ نُورًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a light so you can see the straight path. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help you and help us, those who were born Muslims, to be serious Muslims, to really love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to always improve. The Quran says, لِمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَتَقَدَّمَ أَوْ يَتَأَخَّرَ. For those who wanted to either go and improve or go forward, backward. So in Islam there is no steady standing. Either you go forward and improve in your practice of Islam, or you will go backward. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us all, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us if we said anything offensive to any of you who are not Muslims. I would like, since I'm one of those who helped and organized this conference, and one of the objectives that we planned is to bring us and you all to a better awareness of your responsibility and our responsibility to deliver the message of Islam, interacting with society, interacting with this society, with the American society. Why? You know what Sheikh Jamal Badawi told you, that it is a must on you. The Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that this is our duty. How? Our beloved sisters and brothers told us how, and to whom you heard it. This is one thing. One more practical things on the level of the Oklahoma. We met the different brothers in charge of the Islamic centers. We met this morning, and we decided to form an organization called the Muslim Outreach Committee of Oklahoma. And I will ask Brother Abdul Aziz to talk to you about this for 5 minutes, and then we'll show you the first work of this, inshallah, committee.
Assalamu alaikum. بشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. As you have heard the need, in view of the necessity and in view of the miracles you have seen, and in view of the media's bashing on Islam, it is really necessary that we do some organized work on the level of state, on the level of state of Oklahoma. So we found formed this committee called Muslim Outreach Committee of Oklahoma. And the objective of this committee is to reach out the government institutions with your complaints or with your anything you have about your schools or your offices, to the educational institutions, to the colleges and universities, to the media.
Small step towards the shura, precisely what structures will develop, what shape it will take, is something that now this body will reflect on. So it's not the end of the shura, it's the beginning.
Yes.
Sister here.
Assalamu alaikum. I just want to say that I am very appreciative and I understand fully what this historic moment is. 7 years ago, my husband and I found out about ISNA for the first time. I don't have a question, I just have a statement. I'm so excited. We found out about ISNA not from the Muslims who attend our masjid, who were members of ISNA, who received Horizon magazine. We did not find out about ISNA through the Muslim Journal, though we have always been subscribers of the Muslim Journal. And we always thought we were informed Muslims, holding our ears to the ground, trying to hear everything going on in the Muslim community in America, but it was 7,000 miles away amongst people that we had never met, was making Hajj in 1986 and living and staying at the Rabita in Mina, that we found out about ISNA. I heard today Brother Ihsan saying that this organization is probably about to fall on shaky ground. I hope by Allah that this will not happen to ISNA, because it was the only organization that met our needs for information and kept the feeling of Hajj within our hearts. We were so glad to find an organization that went through the expense of having this convention and bringing Muslims together, that we have come to every convention since 1987. And I pray Allah that this organization and that the shura that you're establishing will continue, and that you will become strong, and that everyone here will take this to heart, and that we will all become participants and make this successful. I've got a 15-year-old daughter whom I hope will be a beautiful Muslim woman and wife, and I want her to marry a Muslim man, and I want to have beautiful Muslim children in America. Assalamu alaikum.
Beautiful prayer. Inshallah, we need to have a national organization for ourselves. We need it for ourselves, not so we do it for our own sake, inshallah. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. I mean, I have been to a couple of conferences, and I always see that Muslim ladies and men come. Here I see that ladies are sitting on the right side and men are on the left. But when I see on the stage, it sounds like that only the men have the right to come on the stage and let the women listen, but not the women have any right to come and let the men sit down and listen from their perspective Islam. I mean, what is this? You see in Shura, I mean, it's very funny. I mean, there's a 50% of our community that are sisters, mothers, wives, and here it's controlled totally by men. I mean, it should supposed to be a voice of women and men. I want all of you to comment on that. Why it is happening like that?
Actually, this is relatively simple. This single session is not representative of all the sessions. It is my hope and prayer that there will be several sessions in which sisters will be sitting here. I mean, I know I have participated in sessions of this. Whether or not they are as visible as men, that is something we have to look at. But no, sisters are not excluded, and I don't think this is something that everybody has to comment. If you like to comment, that's fine. We share your sentiment that sisters should be more visible.
I was surprised to see how many sisters were present and were actually involved in our discussions when we discussed forming a shura for North America.
Like to say something?
Yes.
Is it okay?
I didn't follow the question.
The question is why in this forum here there is no sister. I said this is only one session. This is not the whole convention. Yeah, it's okay.
Jazakallah khairan, fair sister, for the consent. But these are the leaders of this organization that we have invited, especially for this session. But as far as sisters are concerned, actually Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts it in a very simple way. He says, al-mu'minun, believing men, wal-mu'minat, believing women, ba'duhum awliya'u ba'd. They are to share this responsibility, to carry the burden. As a matter of fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored women over men, and vice versa in certain situations, where Allah says, ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Allah has given an example of true faith. He mentioned two, Imra'at Fir'aun, the wife of the Pharaoh, Asya. إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعملي ونجني من القوم الظالمين. Like she has been honored by Allah to be an example of faith. ومريم ابنة عمران التي أحصنت فرجها, who has preserved her chastity, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala venerated her in these two. A woman came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. She said to me, Ya Rasulullah, why men are always mentioned like this? The Quran came with the answer, إِنَّ الْمُسْلِمِينَ وَالْمُسْلِمَاتِ وَالْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Like Muslim men, Muslim women, believing men, believing women, fasting men, fasting women, and so forth until the end. And then it went on to say, وَالذَّاكِرِينَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَالذَّاكِرَاتِ. And those who remember Allah, whether they are men or women, Allah has provided them. The Quran also says, مَن يَعْمَلْ مِنَ الصَّالِحَاتِ مِن ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنثَى. Like whoever does righteous deeds, whether he's a male or a female, Allah will reward them a multiple for that. So the women are there, inshallah, in it.
Jazakallah khairan. I'm only a coordinator of this session. I'm not the Amir of the convention. And the Amir of this program has said one question, one more question, and that's it. So we'll go to the mic there for one question. That's
Assalamu alaikum. I have a statement, so if you want to pass, I'm in support of what's going on. I don't know if you want to hear me or not. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I disagree that all of the weight of the unity of the Muslims can be put on the imams. On the local and the national and the international level, the imams have been taking care of business. That's just a fact. You know, what we have to ask is, are we willing to unify with ourselves? Each individual Muslim here, how many other masajid have we gone to visit? And if the answer is negative, then why are we criticizing the local and national imams and sheikhs? That doesn't make any sense. You know, Allah will judge you, you know, not by what you have told others to do, but what you have done first. And along the positive note, I would strongly urge that Muslim organizations, for example, the schools, they share resources and teachers with each other, Dawa efforts, you know, funding, timing, and getting together, local masajid newspapers, interacting consistently, sharing information about what's going on next weekend, what scholars coming to this masjid to teach, and what events going on at another masjid. And if we do that, Allah will love us. And if we don't do that, Allah will record us. So once again, I give the Muslims warning. Allah is going to ask them what they did. And they were going to give an answer. And then he's going to ask us what we did. We criticized without acting on our own. And then we'll get an answer. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah guide us to the right path. This time I'll invite Dr. Sayyid Saeed, who is going to say dua and conclude this session, inshallah.
Jazakallahu khairan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, لَوْ أَنْفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. If you would have spent all the wealth of the world to unite your brothers and sisters, you would not have succeeded in doing that. وَلَكِنْ هُوَ الَّذِي أَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. It is Allah Himself who has put in your hearts love and affection, which will provide you the Islamic solidarity. Californian Declaration is the first step in the right direction. What form it will take, what shape it will take, what procedures will have to be defined. This is a challenge for you and me and for all of us. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to realize this dream step by step. You are not aware, many of you, how much capacity there is for the munafiqeen to destroy us, to separate us, and to see us scattered. So this is a step to overcome that munafaqah, that divisive forces which are being nursed and nourished by so many different agencies. So in that sense, we congratulate our brothers who have shown the vision and taken the challenge. So in their presence here, I would request Brother Mamdouh to help us to share the vision.
Tonight's on-site show is sponsored by Mercy International, giving a grain of hope to humanity, and by the Muslim Journal, bringing humanity together in moral excellence with truth and understanding.
In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, the likeness of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is as the likeness of a grain that sprouts 7 spikes. In every spike, 100 grains. And Allah multiplies for whom He wills. Allah is all-embracing, all-knowing. You can give a grain of hope. Please call Mercy International at 313-421-CARE.
Muslim medical researchers look for cures to a myriad of illnesses, from obesity to AIDS. The Panama City Clinic, Muslim alternative medicine. No more controversy at Ramadan. Muslim astronomers can compute exactly when Ramadan begins and when it ends.
Today, we can calculate to the nearest second when the moon occurs.
Watch Islamic lunar calculation, another on-site exclusive. In picturesque Winnipeg, Muslim youth spend their summer learning techniques of Dawa in one of the most intensive training programs ever offered by ISNA's Islamic Teaching Center. A summer well spent, tonight, on site. More and more Muslim women are taking physical fitness seriously, and On Site looks at some of their activities. Tonight, On Site, Muslim sisters get fit. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to On Site. I'm Tariq Hashim. As modern society fights illness with mass-produced prescription drugs, a group of Muslim doctors reaches back to the writings of the early Muslim men and women of science to develop what is now come to be called alternative medicine. Ismail Abdurrahim files this insightful report from Panama City.
With an increase in diseases such as cancer and AIDS, the race to find a cure has never been more important. And with the millions of dollars spent each year on just research, seems to be getting us nowhere. The Panama City Clinic and the Institute of Islamic Medicine are waging a war on the killer diseases of the 90s with innovative techniques and the conviction that they can make a difference. The Panama City Clinic and the Institute of Islamic Medicine are amongst very modest settings, but almost nowhere else can you find more sophisticated equipment that deals with immune functions testing. We spoke with Dr. Ahmed Al-Qadi about just what that means.
We're trying to achieve the impossible. We're trying to find alternative therapies for chronic illnesses, for diseases that are considered by most as incurable. We don't believe there's any incurable illness. We feel for every illness there is a cure. It's present. We just have to learn hard and dig enough until we find it.
What that means to a lot of people is a lot less of this and a lot more of this.
If we do not pay attention to our body actually, we are going to go through many hustles, emotionally, physically, financially. So it's better to start now than start later.
Whether religion and spirituality have a lot to do with what we do. Very much so. Because we feel that revealed knowledge, if I can use this expression, is essential, is basic for telling us how to live and how to behave in our life. And these are the things we try to watch when we design our treatment program.
Are you in the business of making people happy?
Yes, I am in the business of making people happy, but not necessarily for the same reason Hollywood tries to make people happy. It's for a different reason. It makes them better, and in this world and in the hereafter, it is worth it.
There's an old adage